Max Verstappen, legendary F1 racing driver, said that basically no car that is front-wheel drive can be considered an actual true driver's car. He said something like that, meaning that anything front-wheel drive basically just doesn't matter. And while I do agree you should take everything an F1 driver says about cars for gospel, I believe there are a couple exceptions. Max, I would like to bring you an exception to that rule that you came up with. What I believe is the greatest front-wheel drive car that money can buy. And I know I'm a little bit biased, and I know there are better versions of this car, but I just have to say, over the past 6 months that I've owned this 2005 Mini Cooper S John Cooper Works, the ownership experience has been stellar, and every time I take it for a drive, it's just awesome. That screaming supercharger up front, connected to that amazing 6-speed manual in the middle, and the rumbling sound coming from the exhaust at the back, all tied together in a package that comes with amazing handling and great steering. These are all things that I believe factor into a great driving experience. It's got the sound, it doesn't have too much power to where you're being reckless, it handles amazing, and I think it's just plain cool, but again, I'm rather biased in that view. In the early 2000s, BMW rolled up their sleeves having acquired the Mini nameplate, and they decided to make the Mini modern, which meant making it, yes, quite a lot bigger than the original, although still the smallest car that was for sale in the United States when it came out in the early 2000s, and much smaller than a modern Mini Countryman. Even though they did make it a little bit bigger, it still followed the Mini's classic ethos of style and driving enjoyment in a small package. And furthering that second theme is where this Mini Cooper S comes in, because critically, the R53, that's the first generation of the new Mini Cooper S specifically, came equipped with a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine and a supercharger attached to that to develop something like 165 horsepower, and it was tied to, for the first couple of years anyway, a 6-speed manual only, sending its power to the front wheels. It still retained the classic transverse front engine, front wheel drive layout that the original Mini was famous and revolutionary for, but it was much sportier, much faster, more powerful, and a lot more modern with things like modern airbags and modern crash safety. But that's not important. We're talking about driving enjoyment here, and this specific R53 takes that one step further because it is equipped with the John Cooper Works body kit as well as the John Cooper Works tuning kit. Up until this model year 2005, John Cooper Works is basically a tuning kit or add-on kit that you could add through your dealer, but in 2006 it became its own separate trim level. And you can also in some markets get the super high performance, super stripped down John Cooper Works GP with even more power and even lighter weight. That really is the greatest front wheel drive car, but it doesn't really apply in this case because 1, I don't own it, 2, I don't think they were for sale in the United States, and 3, they're a lot more expensive. So this car again has those optional add-ons like the tuning kit up front, which comes with, among other mechanical enhancements, a reduced pulley on the supercharger and a special supercharger with its own serial number for this John Cooper Works tuning kit that pushed the power output to around about 200 horsepower. And for me, when it's front wheel drive, 200 horsepower, you don't really want any more than that. When you're asking more than 200 horsepower out of a front wheel drive car, it gets a little bit complicated with things like torque steer and understeer. You really need special trick engineering to filter some of those things out. But to be honest, in my opinion, 200 horsepower in a car this light is completely enough. It's enough to have fun out on public roads, but not enough to be dangerous or reckless or anything like that. Now I want to make it plain, it's not all positivity with this car. There are a couple things about it that I don't really like very much. Number 1, yes, it is a very small car, which means I can fit into really small parking spaces, which is awesome. But sometimes it's a little bit annoying if you need to carry extra passengers. You have to stuff them in the back seats, which are basically brand new looking back seats for a reason, because they've never been used by actual humans. It's a little bit annoying because you either have to ask the front seat passenger to move their seat all the way forward to the point where their knees are touching the dashboard, or you just have to stuff the person in the back seat and hope that they survive. Either way, both front and back seat passengers can't be comfortable in this car at all due to its small size. Also, it goes without saying back there, it's not the most practical car in the world. You can't really use that cargo area for anything other than basic shopping trips. If you're planning on carrying anything more than just a weekend shopping trip in the back of this car, you're gonna have to be folding down the rear seats, which honestly won't be that big of a deal because like I said, you're not gonna be able to fit people in the back of that car. Another thing that I don't like about it is the fact that this is a small car, right? It's got only a 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engine underneath the hood, 2-wheel drive, 6 gears on its manual transmission. You want to guess what fuel economy I get typically? No, it's right about 18 miles per gallon, which I know it has a supercharger. I know it's built more for fun than economical driving, but I mean, come on, out of all the cars in my hoopty fleet, I would expect this one to probably be the most economical. Again, only 1.6 liters. How much fuel can you actually fit into a 1.6 liter engine? It can't be that much, but this car isn't the best on gas. Again, not that big of a deal, and also probably has something to do with the way I drive it usually, which is not like an old lady, let's just say that. Another thing that's a little bit annoying to me is the fact that this car has a habit of just making random noises that make me nervous. Maybe it's the reputation that these R53s have among people who don't really do their research, who are thinking all Minis are unreliable just because the second generation new Minis, the R56s, were the ones for blowing up. It still makes me a little nervous, and every time I hear a random noise, which this car tends to give me a lot, it makes me very nervous. Allow me to give you an example of that. Over the summer, driving this car, there was the supercharger whine, of course, and it was starting to get joined by another whining sound. And I thought to myself, uh-oh, I wonder if the transmission's going out, the flywheel, I don't know what the problem is, but it doesn't sound good. Took it into my mechanic, Russell, asked him to investigate the noise. He drove it, came back, called me and said, yeah, that noise right there, that's the air conditioning. Not even kidding. The whine of the air conditioning was making me think that something was wrong, because I guess I'm just super paranoid. So Russell then told me, don't really bring it back to me for diagnosis unless it's on a flatbed. So I was like, okay.
As you can probably hear, I am on the freeway now, just a couple days later, and bother hooking up my microphone because this is just gonna be short. But the one thing that really bothers me about this car above all else is the ride. Now, if you know anything about R53 Minis, you'll know what I'm talking about. Back when this was new, it was touted to be 50% stiffer than the E46 3 Series, which I also own, and I can confirm that. It definitely feels noticeably stiffer than my E46. Now, there are a couple benefits to that. Yeah, we're just on the highway and it's bumpy and uncomfortable. There's a couple benefits to that, namely, it handles extremely well, and it's got really great body control. Not only are the wheels positioned right up against the corners of the car, which gives it an agile go-kart-like feeling with its handling, the chassis is stiff and there's not that much suspension travel, which means, yes, on a mountain road, which is what we're going to get back to here in a minute, it pays dividends there for sure. And then another thing is a bit of comedic relief. Every time I go into a steep driveway at an angle, for instance, just as a rough example, it always lifts the back wheel up more than any other car that I've ever been in because of how stiff it is. I have to be careful when I go into any sort of driveway or speed bump at an angle or anything like that to not go in too fast, because then the wheel lifts up in the air and then slams back on the ground, and I'm just a little bit worried about causing damage. But the problem is, when you try to drive it like a car on roads, the ride in this car is so stiff that it's right on the edge of being acceptable for me. It's definitely punishing if you're trying to drive this car often. Tits up. Oh my god. It's just going over bumps and potholes and things like that, especially with these wheels. I'm always worried about bending a wheel or cracking a wheel or causing suspension damage or internal damage to myself, which hasn't seemed to have happened yet, so maybe I'm just overreacting about all of it. But it is, I'm not going to pretend that it's not punishing to drive when you go over bumps and you're trying to drive it every day. You can drive it every day. Even me being 6'3", I'm quite tall, I fit perfectly fine in the front seat of this car. Another bump there. Alright, back to the mountain road action.
Yeah, the ride is rough. It's front wheel drive. People think that they're unreliable, and it only has 200 horsepower, but I mean, You can't buy this much fun for this little amount of money. When it comes down to it, you can argue that there are better front-wheel drive cars, and I, for once, engage people to go down into the comments and tell me why I'm wrong, because I want to actually hear the other perspectives that people have. Maybe there's a front-wheel drive car I'm not thinking of. But when it comes down to it, there's no way there's another front-wheel drive car out there that has this much fun for this little money, meaning smiles per gallon or just the dollar value that you get with one of these things. People are afraid of these cars because of the R56, the next generation cars, which were known for exploding, having turbo issues, timing chain guide issues, all sorts of problems. These ones, hold on, turn, I'm gonna push it through here. These ones are known for oil burning, oil leaks, things like the seals in the engine, and the fact that to fix a lot of things, you have to pull the engine out of the car. And I definitely get that. I don't want to have to deal with that either. That's why I ended up buying this one, because even though it is kind of ugly, that front bumper is terrible. I do have a new bumper coming for it. At some point, I'll put that in once it's painted. And a lot of the trim all around it is falling off and not really looking very good. It's not the prettiest Mini, but that's why I went for one that I knew the ownership history of. I knew everything had been done, so mechanically I didn't have to worry about anything on it. But then 5 days into my ownership, the supercharger belt tensioner decided that it wanted to die. So at first I thought, okay, this is a rude awakening for me and I'm learning my lesson about these cars. But then the following 6 months have been just absolute joy. This car is just masterful and amazing. I can't say any more good things about it. Because listen to it. I mean, that supercharger whine will never, ever, ever get old. Never. I don't think it's possible to drive this car and really beat on it and not smile at the end of it. I just don't think it's possible. And if you can't smile when you're driving this car, you just don't have a soul. It's just got so much of a personality. It's so eager, it's so energetic. It just wants to go fast. It wants to be beat on. It wants to go out and have some fun. And again, like I said, people are afraid of these things, but I beat and beat and beat and beat on this car, and nothing is broken on it, nothing has gone wrong since that belt tensioner that I replaced. It's just been perfectly usable, reliable. It's been nothing but a completely positive experience. And yes, Max Verstappen may believe that no front-wheel drive car is an actual decent driver's car, but I have to disagree with him. I think this thing offers the perfect amount of fun out on a normal road like this. Maybe it's not the best out on a track, but it's better than any other cars I have. And for the amount of money that I spent on this car, only $1,850, which I admit is lower than it should be. These things in good shape go for between $5,000 and $10,000. Even for that money, I think this thing is an absolute bargain. So with that, I'm going to end that video there. Hope everybody liked and enjoyed the supercharger noises with me. I know I certainly did. So with that, everybody, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, do all the normal YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.